Avery, whose show is this? And we're live. Welcome everybody here to the Lakers Lowdown podcast. I'm Anthony Irwin, Senior Lakers Insider and lead Lakers content creator for Offside. And today on the show, we're going to be talking about it has been a couple of days since the Lakers played. The whole league is on break. There is only one game tonight, and that is the NBA Cup final between the San Antonio Spurs and the New York Knicks. And then the Lakers are again not in action tomorrow. I'm just going to come out and say it. The Lakers really benefited from not winning their game against the San Antonio Spurs and getting knocked out of the cup the way that they did. They got to play Phoenix again, and they were able to beat Phoenix in the game that, essentially their final NBA Cup game there. They don't play an 83rd game this season. Between their game Sunday and then their game Thursday, they've had all of this time off to kind of rest and recover. It has meant that had they played in the NBA Cup, Austin Reeves wouldn't have been available in that final. And therefore, they would have. They're not only would they have had an 83rd game, but they would have played that game shorthanded, essentially guaranteeing themselves another loss. So, because you would have. Well, I guess you would have played OKC. I don't care. Either way, losing when they did helped the Lakers, and I think if Adam Silver ever wants the NBA and for NBA fans to care about the NBA Cup, he's going to have to figure out a way to make it so that winning that thing, there's incentive that improves your season chances, that go along with winning that tournament, whether it's an automatic playoff bid, whether it's a pick in the lottery. Like I actually really like the idea of whoever wins the NBA Cup gets like the final pick in the lottery, and essentially there's 31 picks in the first round, and there would be an extra pick there on the line. That would get everybody to play really hard. Regardless, we are going to be talking today though about Giannis and the Bucks, and how my buddy Jake Fisher, who obviously writes with Mark Stein on the Stein Line, did a bunch of reporting on that situation, and reported that the Bucks, there, some names that the Bucks are looking at in an effort to convince Giannis to stick around. And we will honestly going to throw it back over to you guys. I know we did Q&A yesterday, and it's a bit of a cop out on my part, but whatever it is that you guys want to talk about, we'll go ahead and talk about on the back half of the show. But with the Bucks getting desperate, I do think this is an opportunity for the Lakers to maybe take advantage, especially if we find out that Giannis wants to stay on the East Coast. So we'll talk about that. We'll throw it to you guys. We'll get out of here at a decent time so that I can go and cook dinner. Have somebody asking how my throat is feeling. Feels a little raspy, but honestly not too bad. It's that time of year where kids are bringing any number of bugs home from school, and I am just trying to drink as much orange juice and vitamin whatever, I think it's C or B, I don't know, the vitamin that hopefully helps your immune system. I'm trying to get my hands on any and all of that, and I'm snorting it. I'm injecting it into my veins. I'm drinking it by way of orange juice. I'm doing whatever I can to not get sick, and it's probably not going to work. But overall, I feel all right, and I'm looking forward to what should be a pretty fun show. These shows tend to be some of my favorites because we get to wander around and shoot the shit for a little bit. Let's do just that soon. A quick reminder, please hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you get your podcasts. If you guys are listening to this in podcast form, if you guys are listening to this or watching this on Twitter, head on over to youtube.com/@Lakers Lounge to find the show there. Once you find the show there, hit that subscribe button. If you guys are watching live here on YouTube now, hit that like button there as well. And then the share button also helps a little bit too. But subscribe, turn your notifications on, all of that good stuff, and we will help this thing continue its growth. But yeah, let's go ahead and start with the Giannis situation in Milwaukee. So I'm going to try to get to Substack really quick because, and by the way, if you guys haven't subscribed to the work that Jake and Mark do, it is stellar work that they do. And it is, it's the kind of stuff that I would say you really should be subscribed to. But yeah, the whole thing here with Mark and Jake and the reporting about this Giannis situation. Essentially, the Bucks are getting more and more desperate to, hopefully convince Giannis to stick around. And I'm of the opinion that they need to give those efforts up, but they're not going to, obviously. It's not like you're going to just wake up the next morning and find another Giannis if you're the Milwaukee Bucks. But yeah, the thing with Giannis and Milwaukee is that, clearly that roster needs more help. Clearly, if they want to compete this year, as Giannis wants to compete this year, they're going to have to make another win now type move. And they just don't have many assets by which to acquire somebody, which means you're hoping for a discount. They're probably taking on another bad contract, and that gets us to this list of players that that the Bucks are kind of interested in. They find themselves like looking at like not particularly exciting names. This is from Jake. Quote, the Athletic recently reported that the Bucks have revisited the prospect of pursuing Sacramento's Zach LaVine, bad contract. That's the type of player who makes the most sense for Milwaukee to chase. They're thin on the wing between ANTETOKOUNMPO and Miles Turner in the Bucks' young backcourt. The team's lack of draft capital, furthermore, means that its only likely avenue to acquiring a difference maker during the season is by taking on a contract. Like LaVine's, that most consider too pricey. Remember, Milwaukee does not have an unencumbered first-round pick it can trade until 2031. Another player who has been on Milwaukee's radar under the same premise, both this season and in previous years, is Trailblazers swingman Jeremy Grant. He's actually been playing really well this season. So he would be a helpful pickup. But again, quoting Jake here, Grant has 2 seasons remaining on his deal after this one worth just over $70 million. And Portland already controls Milwaukee's first-round pick in 2028, 29, and 30 as a vestige of the Damian Lillard trade. It's a combination, incidentally, that has prompted several rival teams, strategists, to point to Portland as a potential participant in an eventual multi-team Giannis trade structure if or when that structure actually materializes. Other players Milwaukee has displayed some interest in previously, Andrew Wiggins, remember he has a player option for next season, and New Orleans' DeJounte Murray, another player with years and money left on his deal extending beyond the season. Interestingly enough, one of the players listed here, as well as PJ Washington, one of the players listed here that the Bucks might be interested in is Marcus Smart of our Lakers. So I'll say this: I don't believe that the Lakers would help the Bucks keep Giannis. Right? That is somebody that the Lakers. Now, look, what would be funny though is just like we saw before LeBron came. Remember, the Lakers traded some guys back to Cleveland Um, no, the Lakers benefited from that in that they cleared their books, and then for Cleveland, the guys that they got back, Larry Nance Jr., I think Jordan Clarkson was one of the guys there. And I think there was one more guy, but the Lakers sent some guys to Cleveland, and they didn't care if it resuscitated Cleveland's season that year. The Lakers were already, I think, pretty comfortable and confident that LeBron was eventually going to sign with them. They just needed to clear out the books to give themselves an opportunity at it. So they sent guys to Cleveland and cleared their books. Cleveland obviously, didn't do enough to convince LeBron to stick around for beyond that season. LeBron winds up signing with the Lakers, and the rest has been history. In this case, if the Lakers, what would be interesting is if the Lakers basically said, "All right, you want Marcus Smart, you also have to take on Jared Vanderbilt's salary and um, send us back this, that, and the other, or get involved in a 3-team trade and make up for trading Marcus Smart and trading Jared Vanderbilt, with win now players as well. And then the Lakers, you might be able to get a draft pick out of it. The Lakers are draft pick light. They could be able to get, you could be able to get out from under the remaining years on Jared Vanderbilt's contract. You could get younger or more athletic, right? The Marcus Smart has been good for the Lakers this year, but he is a little long in the tooth and as such has missed some time. So in just this one way, you could potentially benefit from Milwaukee's desperation. Another way you could benefit is from the desperation of another team that thinks they have a better chance at Giannis than, say, the Lakers do. I can tell you right now, the Lakers are doing whatever they possibly can to unearth some type of solid answer as to whether or not Giannis is interested in coming to LA or going to LA. And if so, then the Lakers are going to do whatever they can to position themselves for Giannis in this upcoming offseason. They obviously will kick down doors if they have to maybe get him before the deadline. If you're going to do that, you're almost certainly trading Austin Reeves for him. But the other thing that the Lakers might wind up doing here is if they find out that Giannis is indeed focused solely on staying on the East Coast and playing in one of the bigger markets. I know Chris Haynes kind of alluded to Giannis being interested in playing in a city with sun, which who among us isn't? Giannis is interested in being in a bigger market than Milwaukee, which that bar is relatively low. And he wants to win. He wants to go to a situation where he would be put in a more advantageous spot than he currently is, compared to the rest of the teams that are vying for a championship this year and beyond. And once again, you look at Milwaukee's books and you look at that supporting cast, that bar is relatively low still, I would say, especially if, Giannis is going to another team. How much more work do you need to do beyond adding Giannis to what is likely already a playoff team? One would imagine Giannis, whenever he gets traded or if he ever gets traded, that, getting to a situation that is better in terms of basketball than the one he finds himself in Milwaukee, not that hard. so, I know New York has been mentioned a ton, right? We've talked about Giannis to New York a bunch. Shams Charania, right, reported before the season that the Knicks at one point had an exclusive negotiating window that they weren't able to take full advantage of, obviously. But I don't imagine that Giannis would now be disinterested in going to New York. So New York almost certainly will be on the list. Brooklyn, I think, figures into this as well. Though I tend to think that Brooklyn probably missed the bus there, in that they had like 5 picks in last year's draft and took players with all of them, and what they probably should have done is called up Milwaukee and been like, "You can have all of these if you want." They who knows if they did or didn't. But regardless, now those picks are players and not that great of players either. And those assets are a lot less valuable now than they were heading into last summer. So the Nets find themselves in a tougher spot to trade for Giannis now than they had maybe a few months ago. So there's New York. Outside of that, right? I haven't heard much interest in Giannis and Boston either way. And then the team that does come most to mind, and I think Kalshi tweeted out that the team that the odds on favorite according to Kalshi's estimate is Miami the Miami Heat, and it makes some sense, right? You have a team that always considers itself a destination in Miami, a beautiful city to play in. Um, Not a huge market in terms of the media landscape, but you know, not a tiny one either. And then you have, you're still on the East Coast, which means getting to Greece is relatively easy. And the weather in Miami, you could argue the weather in Miami is second to none in the league. If you want to say that LA has better weather or a better climate overall, then I wouldn't disagree. But it's between those two markets, really. And for if that's something that Giannis and his family are really interested in, Miami presents that. And it brings me to, well, if Giannis is traded to Miami, how can the Lakers maybe benefit here? And look, I'm not above facilitating a Giannis trade if I'm the Lakers. If would you be better off trading everything that you would need to trade for Giannis, and hoping that he and Luka fit, or would you be better off facilitating that trade, getting Andrew Wiggins and maybe an asset on top of that? So, for taking on Andrew Wiggins' contract and helping get Giannis to Miami in the first place, whether it's a second rounder, whether the price on Andrew Wiggins drops, right, by way of facilitating this trade. Like, can you get out of Jared Vanderbilt's contract so that, yeah, Giannis can technically, I believe he can extend, but I'd have to double check on that. But Giannis is still slated to be a free agent as soon as after next year. So if Giannis goes to Milwaukee and finds a lot of the same stuff, or if Giannis goes to Miami and finds a lot of the same stuff, the Lakers could still get in there and potentially steal Giannis after trading for Wiggins for the run up until then. And by the way, like if the Lakers somehow walk away with Andrew Wiggins here and say like a second round pick, or Wiggins doesn't cost a first round pick, now you probably still have a good chunk of your expiring money. You still have that first round pick. You could probably go out and get yourself a little bit more help on top of that if that is what you choose to do. And is that as sparkly as landing Giannis Antetokounmpo? No. Is it practical? I would say so. Does it help your team? Yeah, especially if you can get Wiggins and not include Rui. I think that's a win-win-win in my book, especially if facilitating this trade means that you get Wiggins on any kind of a discount asset-wise. That's fine with me. And then you go into this upcoming summer, and yes, Wiggins has a player option, but one thing that we've seen a lot of players do basically is if they have a player option, which would basically put them at 1 year at a really big number, what a lot of players are actually choosing to do is, well, can I get a smaller number over a couple more years? And now Wiggins is a little bit older than Reeves and Austin or Reeves and Luca, but he does. He's not like he's washed or super old. I think he's like 30. And he's such a great athlete that I don't think that athleticism is going to diminish at all. He's a decent shooter, so I think he's going to age fairly well. And now all of a sudden, you get, if you're able to convince Wiggins to take a little bit less next year and maybe attach a year or two at the end of the contract for him to do so, or to consider that. And then you have LeBron, whose contract ends after this one, and I don't, man, I don't know if he's going to be a max player after this year, but regardless, you have improved your chances this year, and depending on if or whether basically Giannis extends with Miami whenever he gets there. If he doesn't, now you have the best of both worlds where you can continue to apply pressure over the course of that following season. Your team is probably going to be better than Miami next year. And then after that 1 year in Miami, if Giannis decides, hey, this wasn't that much better or better enough than it was in Milwaukee, I would like to test free agency, then the Lakers can swoop right in and be like, well, look at that. Our books are completely clean because you guys took on Jared Vanderbilt's contract or whatever it was. And Giannis, you can come here and play with Luka. We'll probably have some more cap space beyond that. I would imagine the only players on the Lakers in this scenario that would be, on the books would be like, Luka, Giannis, and Austin. And then you get to fill out the roster beyond that, using bird rights and filling out that group as best you can beyond that trio. So just something to think about, as we learn more about that situation in Milwaukee. And that's just one example, right? Like you could maybe do the same thing with New York if they decide that they need to move one of their wings and make room, to facilitate that trade. Can the Lakers swoop in there and get one of those wings, whether it's a Josh Hart, whether it's a Mikal Bridges, whether it's an OG Anunoby? What can the Lakers do? Chances are New York would probably just trade Cat for Giannis, but if for whatever reason Milwaukee decides they don't want Cat and they want more flexibility because Cat's contract is so onerous moving forward, maybe the Lakers can swoop in there and be like, we have a first round pick. We are interested in a wing. And saying what you could possibly do there. So, yeah, I think, this is just something. Obviously, most ideal situation would be just acquiring Giannis. But if that isn't in the books for whatever reason, then I think the Lakers, should look to get creative and benefit from Giannis moving somewhere, no matter where it is that he goes. All right. Let's see. I'm going to dive into the super comments here. Oh, we have a super comment. So that means I get to play. All right, Dr. Funkology 8164. Thanks for the super chat. So another direction, what do the Bucks have to offer to get help for Giannis picks, etc., and stop trying to trade Rui? By the way, I didn't trade Rui, and I don't think I traded Rui there, did I? I ideally, in terms of like the way that this trade deadline would go, I would like to see the Lakers keep Rui, but acquire a better fifth starter who has the political capital in the locker room to start over Rui. And then move Rui to, I think, a role that he is probably best at, which would be scorer off of the bench or floor spacer off of the bench. Like that would be ideal here. And yeah, like Schmicky makes a good point here that Rui becomes super valuable after Braun retires. I wouldn't go so far as to call him super valuable, but I would say he's an important part and always plays well when LeBron isn't available. But yeah, I would say that, like, whether it's Herb Jones, whether it's, we just talked about Andrew Wiggins, whether it's Michael Porter Jr., like, those types of wings, that's the kind of player that you would need to acquire to have that player start over Rui basically right when he gets there. The Lakers aren't going to acquire a player like that until they know how this Giannis thing is going to play out. And once they find out that, the that Giannis isn't coming or whatever, then they would, reevaluate how they want to use their assets. But yeah, I just think with for as it pertains to Rui, I know I'm really hard on the guy, but we're talking about a starter on a title contender, right? We're talking about a starting spot on a team that has championship aspirations. I'm really hard on all of those guys. Like, there are times where I think I sent in the Slack one day. I think Luka scored like 38 points in one of the games that the Lakers lost, and I was like, was that the emptiest 38-10 game that you've ever seen? Um, because I didn't think Luka was particularly good that night. And with all of these guys, if your team is trying to win a championship, everybody gets held to a really high standard. And you know, you have to optimize all of those starting spots. You have to optimize that starting lineup. You have to optimize all of the minutes that lineup plays together, knowing that that's going to be the group that plays the most together. And unfortunately, in Rui's case, this means that, he's the easiest to move to the bench, and he is the guy who I think fits the worst with that group. So you figure out a way to have that group fit better, and unfortunately for Rui, it probably means a move to the bench. Let's see. The next question here comes from Ryan Lucas, LA. So LA is basically waiting out the Giannis situation. I would say that's a fair assessment, that the Lakers are very aware of some of the shortcomings on this roster, but also very aware of the fact that addressing any of those shortcomings on this roster might present an opportunity cost of how you can be situated if and when Giannis ever does get so sick of things in Milwaukee that he says, you know what, we tried. This roster isn't going anywhere. I would like to go somewhere. And then at that point, the Lakers, they would first see how, what their chances are of acquiring Giannis. I actually think, like, I would be somewhat surprised, and I definitely wouldn't be shocked if Giannis was traded before the deadline this year. And the reason for that is because, you know, if you're New York, or if you're Miami, or if you're, any of these teams that might have a shot at Giannis now, the last thing you want to see is a Lakers team with cap flexibility and with more assets now be able to join that conversation in a greater way than they are involved right now. So, if you're New York, if you're Miami, if you're, any of these teams that Giannis might have on his list, or even if you're a team that Giannis doesn't have on his list, and you decide that you really, really want to go for it this year, you probably want to trade for Giannis before the Lakers have their full disposal of assets and cap space and all of that stuff after the season. Um, and look, if he doesn't get traded, and the Lakers are presented an opportunity to trade for him in this upcoming summer, we saw how that played out with Anthony Davis, where enough teams said, you know what, we're good, pushed away from the table, and the Lakers were able to land Anthony Davis and win a championship. And in this case, if that same scenario plays out here, I'm sure the Lakers wouldn't lose any sleep over, oh golly gee, an extra first round pick we might have to put on the table, or oh no, we might have to include a Dude Theoro for Giannis. So yeah, the Lakers are going to be involved and interested and paying very, very close attention to all of this, not just how things are going in Milwaukee, but also, what Giannis's market is looking like. Like that is it's all going to come down to how quickly a team that is not the Lakers is able to trade for him. And we'll just have to see how that plays out. But until then, the Lakers are kind of stuck. And look, it's okay to be stuck on December 16th. January 16th, starting to sweat a little bit. I think the deadline takes place before February 16th. But if you get into February and you still don't really know how this is going to play out with Giannis and what his priorities are and what his list might be and all that stuff, is he actually going to fully demand a trade, say with his chest? If you get to January and certainly February and you don't have answers to those questions, then I think it's probably time to prioritize some different moves and at least for the rest of this season, focus on something else. Gosh darn it, wrong button again. All right, let's see what other questions you guys have for me here. I'm going to scroll up to the top. The NBA Cup winner should get 4 points in the standings. Well, that's from Christian Navarro. There's no real points in standings. I like the idea of offering a first round pick to the team that wins it, whether it's in the middle of the draft or at the very end of the draft. If because then you would have teams that they're tanking, but everybody could use an extra first round pick. Whereas now, these teams that are tanking, yeah, sure, it's cute that your players can win some extra cash. Those teams don't care. Like those teams are just like, oh, cool, all right. What we still played an extra game for this. But if those teams learned, okay, a first round pick is on the is at stake here, is on the table. Everybody, whether you're tanking, whether you're going for it this year, whether you're anywhere in between, those teams are going to do whatever they can to win themselves that extra draft pick. Just like if you think that you could, if the league decides to go in the direction of teams that win the NBA Cup get to a free trip to the playoffs or a guaranteed spot in the playoffs or the play-in or whatever, that's something that those owners are definitely going to push for. But as it stands right now, winning the NBA Cup, yes, the players play a lot harder, especially in the NBA Cup's playoff, knockout stage or whatever. They play a lot harder because there's money on the line that is immediately affected by whether or not they win that game. But as far as the teams, they don't care whether Jackson Hayes takes home $50,000 or $500,000. That doesn't impact those teams at all. Where it does, where you would get teams to care a little bit more is if you bring playoff revenue as a possibility, if you bring a first round pick into that, into that equation as well, that could change things. But yeah, until the NBA Cup actually impacts your chances of winning that season or sometime soon, I just don't think fans are going to care about it very much, and they aren't going to care about it very much because I don't think the teams care about it all that much. Oh, wrong button again. Good Lord. Let's see. First, or not first, but let's see if I can go up here. Sea moss and black seed oil? What are those things? This is a response to me talking about like a raspy throat. I don't know what those things are. Um, I do think the ocean has healing powers though. Like I 100% agree with that. But as far as like, yeah, what those things are, I guess I'll look it up and see what we can find. Um, Infants, INFNZN. I don't think rewarding picks would have teams play harder since those picks, in theory, would be replacing the players' jobs. Well, you put the cash prize on the table, and I think you have the players playing extra hard regardless. Um, but if you put the pick on the table, now all of a sudden, and that, by the way, your superstar is going to care about that because that pick that could be won by way of winning that NBA Cup is something that would help their team compete in the now. Which, if your superstar cares about it, that superstar is going to set a tone and thus improve the overall approach to those games. So I don't know. That my biggest thing, whether it's giving a first round pick to the winner of the tournament, whether it's you know um a trip to the playoffs to the team that wins that tournament, like I don't care what it is, but it has to like Stan Van Gundy saying after the game, "Oh my God, look at the Spurs! They won $50,000 extra dollars per player," and it's like I don't care. I could care less. Congratulations on those guys' bags. No fan is gonna be like, oh, thank goodness the multi-millionaire that I'm rooting for made an extra 50 grand. Like, Rui was talking about putting his winnings on black. So it's not life-changing money to the players who were playing in this thing. For most of them, fans don't really benefit from whether or not their favorite player got an extra 50 or 500 grand. But fans will care if winning that thing gets them a draft pick. Fans will care if winning that thing automatically gets them to the playoffs or the play in even. Those are things that the league needs to consider if this thing is ever going to take hold in any real way. And especially if they want fans to go all the way to Vegas to watch their team play in that game, like you're going to have to give fans some kind of incentive, and certainly more incentive than they have right now. Let's see. The next question here comes from BDA Pink. Are we sure Rob and Jeannie will hire additions to the B-Ball Ops staff? Yes. Here's why. All of them. Rob, Jeannie, Linda, Kurt, to a different extent, Tim Harris. That whole cabal of people that has been running the Lakers since Jeannie took over, all of those people care deeply about keeping their jobs. And if any of them, like if Mark Walter walks into a room and asks Rob, all right, you've talked to Andrew Friedman, you've talked to Farhan Saidi, they've given you advice on how they built out the Dodgers when they got there. What do you need? How can we get you more resources? Which extra resources do you need? And if Rob says, I'm good, very good chance he just cost himself his job. Because Mark Walter isn't going to allow, I don't think, Rob to continue to function in the same way that he has functioned to this point. That's not the sense I get from my time covering the Dodgers, let alone my time rooting for the Dodgers as just a fan. That is not how Mark Walter operates. He doesn't give you extra credit for doing a whole bunch with little. He's of the mindset, all right, if you're capable of doing X, Y, and Z with ABC resources, what would you be capable of with capital ABC resources? All of the resources. What would you be capable of if you had any organizational advantage that we can give you? what would that mean for your production? And that's going to be the conversation that Mark Walter's going to have with Rob. He's going to have it with Jeannie. He's going to have it with all, with everybody who is currently in charge or has any kind of sway in the Lakers organization. That's what those conversations are going to look and sound like. And if he doesn't get the right answer, if he doesn't get the right response, then Rob, get ready to speak spectrum. Because Mark Walter is not going to be interested in all of your front office having to juggle different jobs at the same time. That's not how Mark Walter gets down. Next question here comes from let's see. I don't know. Do I want 2 top 5 players or AR? Look, I understand because I see this too. JS 3300 also writing, get Giannis. Let's not be silly. Get the freak. I've heard any number of people in the chat or comment section after these shows are no longer live. I see all the arguments was like, stop overthinking it. Just go get Giannis, dummy. And it's like, I get it. I really, really do. And in almost all instances, I agree. Don't be stupid. Just go get the all-world talent. The thing is, though, now more than maybe ever in the history of the NBA, fit really, really matters. It's not just how talented each individual part is. It's what is the sum of those parts on a night-by-night basis? And is the sum of the parts greater than any individual part? Because if you expend all of the resources necessary to go out and get a Giannis, and he and Luka don't fit to the extent that you're looking for, you just crippled your franchise moving forward. And and I think the best recent example of this, right, is what happened in Phoenix. What happened in Milwaukee when Milwaukee traded for Damian Lillard and he and Giannis didn't run pick and roll together. Like if Giannis gets to the Lakers and the Lakers say like, all right, you're setting screens for Luka now, right? And he's like, no, I'm a point center now. And then all of a sudden you're like, we have a point guard guy over there in like, we need you to be the nail of all nails. Like if Luka and Austin is the hammer, we need you to be the nail. We need you to end teams, be this absolute force of nature in the short roll. Somebody who, teams can't just switch a pick and roll with. Like, we need you to do that. And if Giannis isn't interested in it, and your 2 best players don't fit to the extent that they could, guess what? You're losing to superstar X and team around him that actually does fit. You're just losing that. That's how that's going to go. So, yeah, for all of those reasons or for that explanation, I'm really of the opinion that, like, how can you maximize Austin and Luka as a pairing? How much athleticism can you stack around them? By the way, if it turns out that Austin and Luka are, aren't athletic enough together to win a championship, then you have to be open to trading Austin too, right? Like, I'm not saying, this isn't just a Giannis thing either. It's the goal right now. You traded for Luka. You did the impossible thing. You did the hard thing. You acquired the generational talent. That box is checked. Now, what can you do to optimize the chances that you have with that box checked? And in this case, I don't know that it's trading for Giannis. It might be. I might be completely overthinking this, but I tend to think that it's like and the other thing too is the CBA makes it really bleeping hard to function with 3 max salaries. So it might just be if you trade for Giannis, if you acquire Giannis, then you might just be saying goodbye to Austin sooner rather than later anyway, so that Austin's salary can be broken up into 1 or 2 higher impact role players rather than Luka at the max, Giannis at the max, Austin at or near his max, and then the pips surrounding them. Like that's a very difficult, cap needle to thread there. So um yeah, I get it. Don't be stupid. Go Giannis. That's how I feel 99% of the time. This might just be that like 1% situation where it's like, yeah, but all right. Moneyboy 2779. I know he isn't available, but would you trade Reeves for Jalen Johnson? That is a good question. Let me see how old Jalen Johnson is. The one issue that I have with Jalen Johnson, and I love his game. Oof, man, he's only 23. So yes, in short, absolutely. If the Lakers could somehow do that, and I don't think they could, but if the Lakers could somehow do that, I would swap Austin for Jalen Johnson. He is 6'8", hyper athletic wing, super switchable, incredible defender, showing some creative chops this season. As Atlanta becomes a Jalen Johnson team and moves away from being a Trae Young team, like he would be incredible next to Luka. The problem with Jalen Johnson though is his games played per season. You look at his career; he's been in the league now. This is his 5th season. Games played: 22 his rookie season, 70 his second season. That's a good number. And then it drops down to 56 the following year, 36 the last year. Now, so far this season, he's played in 24 of however many games Atlanta has played so far. Let's knock on wood and hope that continues. But the only reason that I would hesitate there trading Reeves for Jalen Johnson would be, one, I want to, before I trade Austin, I want to know for sure that he and Luka definitely don't fit. But more practically speaking, Jalen Johnson's availability does make me a little nervous. But man, what a player! Like, what a freaking player! What a talent! And you got to be pretty good for an organization to start looking at Trae Young a certain way, and they are. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if Trae Young wasn't on the Hawks at the end of the season, and they just moved completely into the Jalen Johnson era. Especially with Kristaps Porzingis basically not being able to stay healthy. Like their current window is kind of fuzzy a little bit, but if they could extend that window by trading Trae Young for players who are closer to Jalen Johnson's timeline, that's probably what they should do. I know that I've seen a lot of people kind of connect the dots there with them and Giannis, or I got an email today saying that the Hawks are the betting favorite to trade for Anthony Davis. A little long in the tooth for me. But I also could see them saying like, all right, this is going to be the last go at the Trae Young era. And then after this, depending on how that goes, maybe we just move on from the Trae Young era and welcome fully the Jalen Johnson era. But he's that good. He is definitely good enough to be, to have his own era with an organization. He is, I love Jalen Johnson's game. The next let's see. Go up here. Zane 4070. Any word on an Agbaji trade? Also, what do you think about Magnon getting some burn? He looks like Caruso in the G League. I think he's a year away from Magnon. That is a year away from being a year away. Agbaji is an interesting one because I liked him a lot last season, and so did Toronto. And then for whatever reason, this year he has fallen completely out of the rotation. And they're better for it. Like they're playing better basketball now than they were when he was a bigger part of the rotation last year. But still, at least in theory, he is very much the kind of player that the Lakers, need. I'm just gonna pull up his stats and stuff like that. But yeah, so he is 25 years old, a little older. He's been in the league for a minute now. Um, he is 6'5", good athlete. He's definitely more of a 2/3 than he would be a 3/4. And that makes me a little hesitant, right? But he is I like this game at Kansas. Where was he? Yeah, he was at Kansas, right? Yeah. I liked this game at Kansas, and then he played well early in his career. Especially when he went from Utah initially, got to Toronto and looked good last year. For whatever reason, hasn't really been able to figure into the rotation this year. He went from 27 minutes a game last year to 15 minutes a night this year. His points, he went from averaging 10.4 last year to 3.5 this season. I would love, maybe I'll talk to some Toronto people and ask like what gives. But that is somebody that the Lakers, it would actually really remind me of the Rui situation where, remember, Rui at the end of his time there at Washington was kind of in and out of the rotation. And then eventually they were like, you're about to be a free agent. Let's get something for you. They got, Kendrick Nunn's expiring contract and some second round draft capital. Maybe the Lakers, try to pull off a similar deal here for Agbaji that would cost a similar. The thing with the Lakers is they're going to have to figure out a way to get their hands on more second round draft capital, whether that's trading away a player, whether that is acquiring second round draft capital in whatever trade that they make, by maybe sending out a first, whatever it is. Having, I think, only the one second round pick at their disposal, as Dan kind of said the other day, Lakers pick swaps are kind of worthless because they aren't going to convey so long as Luka's there and the Lakers don't completely shit the bed. Now, I don't think they're worthless completely, but they are certainly worth less now than they were before the Lakers got Luka. So I would say, Agbaji probably goes for an expiring contract. Maybe Dalton and or it's like well, I think Dalton on his own would suffice contractually to trade for Agbaji. And maybe that's enough. Maybe, both teams just basically swap projects. The Lakers basically bring in Agbaji, see what he can become in their system. Toronto in Dalton and sees what he could be in their system. And both teams kind of move on from, failed draft picks to this point, or not draft picks. Utah drafted Agbaji, but yeah, he's an interesting name. I have heard that the Lakers have shown a little bit of interest in him, but I think they would like somebody who is a little bit more win now. Their first pick will be, or their first move, I think, will be on a win now player. And then if, after all of the deals happen and stuff like that over the course of the rest of the trade season, maybe the Lakers revisit somebody like Agbaji, who wouldn't cost much, who does have, some room to grow, and they move forward that way. All right. I just got called by my wife, which means I have to get working on dinner. That is going to do it here for this episode of the Lakers Lounge podcast. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Again, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, hit that share button. If you guys are on Twitter, head to youtube.com/@LakersLounge to find the show there. And then if you guys are listening to this in the morning via podcast, hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you get your podcast, preferably on Odyssey, but wherever it is that you get it, works for me. And until the next time you guys hear from me, I have a great rest of your day. Make somebody else's, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow on another likely slow news day. Have a good one, everybody.
Bye, everyone.